Welcome to BlackLOGIC. How was everybody weekend? My weekend was pretty good last weekend. I celebrated my birthday, just turning 25. You can add to those years nonetheless, but I had a good time. I was up in Houston with some friends, went to a Dîner en Blanc, which is a white party they have around the country actually. I think it's ran by a black group of sorts. Good entertainment, good fun. The only disclaimer I have, okay, I'm a stickler when it comes to what I have to wear. It was all white. And some people absolutely love it, right? Don't get me wrong. It was over 2,000 people there. And we absolutely had a great time. I have I have a couple of negative things to say, but mostly positive. I think the only negative thing I have to say about the white party that I attended this weekend was you have to carry your own chairs and tables. That's kind of the only thing. And I understand it logistically. It makes sense why you have to bring your own things, because if so, they will have to do it. Now we'll have to, be more expensive, charging people for storage or you accumulating the price. But anyway, for my birthday, I had a great time. My wife treated me very, very nice, even though I was being, I was being in a type of way. And I wasn't tipsy or nothing like that, family. I just was being a certain type of way. But she understood. I have a great wife. But yeah, I had a good time. And like I said, the only negative thing I can really take away from the white party is you have to carry your own table and chairs. And yeah, they provide a bus or you drive up and everybody has a cart or a dolly that they're bringing in stuff, and you set up and people are bringing their own things. And the only thing that the venue really provides is entertainment. They may have some where you can buy wine or pre-order wine, charcuterie boards, or you bring your own food. A lot of things were kind of misunderstood in the instructions for me because I really wasn't paying attention to it like my wife, but we saw some people who knew how to finagle the white party, right? They wasn't wearing all white like we thought, like pure white. They were wearing beige, tan, and some of that information did come out later. But people had red in their hats. It wasn't as white as we thought it was, but for the most part, people were wearing white. And our people look absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful black people all over the place, dressed down to a T. Now, check out my Instagram. And as well, I might post some clips here on YouTube, but check out my Instagram where I'm going to post all the pictures. I'm going to post all the short clips that I did of the Dîner en Blanc white party in Houston this past weekend. Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on, family. And I think one of the largest things that's going on, of course, we've kind of taken our eye off Ukraine and Russia, but they're still fighting. People are still dying. You don't get that on mainstream news, right? You get that on their subsidiaries of the information between Ukraine and Russia. Yes, that's going on. The reason why, in my opinion, the reason why this particular war is getting more news coverage than the Ukraine-Russian war is because it's not only a battle between people who are fighting over land. Okay. A lot of people think, first and foremost, this is a fight over religion. There's some remnants in some regards to it that is embedded, that is meshed in of what's going on with Hamas and Israel and the conflict between the activity that's happening in Palestine and Israel. Because we have to understand within Palestine, there's another group, and Israel's attacking a group within Palestine, but within Gaza, and then Hamas. So there's a lot of elements to this, and for people who don't really study the history behind these countries and the conflict, it has to do with power, it has to do with land, it has to do with religion, it has to do with culture, it has to do with differences. There's a lot of things going on right now, and that is one of the main reasons why this particular conflict is getting more attention than the Ukraine and Russia conflict. And here's another component to think to as well. Jewish Americans in America as one of the most powerful groups in America. So that's another reason why this particular conflict is getting more attention than any other conflict. And this is absolutely important. This debate that you're about to hear, and fair use, providing information on news and commentary. This is for the YouTube algorithms family. But other than that, this particular debate shocked me because I forgot how to pronounce the gentleman's name, but I think his name is Cenk Uygur or Uygur. He's Turkish, I believe. He's the one CEO and owner of the Young Turks. Now, this, let me tell you, was a very, very powerful debate that I think that the entire country needs to hear. Now, it states in their description, Israel has agreed to a 4-hour humanitarian pause while Biden made certain that the reporters knew there were absolutely no chance for a ceasefire. Okay, and that's what they're discussing. So we're going to get into this clip because there is a whole hell of a lot that's going on. And I think that it's important that we understand. Now, as Black Americans, let's be real. This has nothing to do with us. And I believe it's in our own best interest to mind our fucking business. Just like, yo, we didn't help everybody out and we have not received that same help and support when it comes to our causes. And again, this is not to be divisive. I want to be very, very clear. This is not to be revengeful, divisive, and or negative. This is that we need to start reserving and preserving our energy for our causes. Because far too long have the baby boomers and our civil rights movement put on a cape for every single cause. They put on a cape for the workers' union. They put on a cape for feminism. They put on a cape for the LGBT community. They put on a cape for Asians. They put on a cape for illegal immigration. They put on a cape for everybody. But when it came for us for having been a protected class and or reparations, there's no more energy and there's no more caping for us. So again, finally, someone is now coming out. And I'm going to tell you this, family, this debate, just the way how the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, okay, there is a George-ran organization, how they label people, they're going to look at this debate and they're going to analyze it. They're going to say, how can we make this anti-Semitic? Right? How can we make this anti-Semitic? And it was funny, you know, for the past 2 or 3 years, mass media has been painting Black Americans as anti-Semitic. Now, first and foremost, I'm not saying that my people are not intelligent, but there are words we're not familiar with. Most Black people up until this year probably didn't know what anti-Semitic mean. You got some scholars, you got some activists, you got some grassroots, but the common folk aren't walking around the hood like, yeah, man, don't be anti-Semitic. What? Stop. Black Americans are not prejudiced or racist towards Asians. Now, you have your outliers, but we're not walking around where all these other groups are living rent-free in our head. That's just not how we operate. We're not thinking about, oh, you know, these Asians out here. That's not who we are. We're trying to get on our grind and get it out the mud and level up as well. But let me start talking here, family. This debate that we're about to go over is very pivotal for us, not one, to get involved, but to understand a lot of the things that's going on. Because they keep trying to group Black Americans into this. I saw a clip by Michael Rappaport. I forgot the guy's name. I don't know how you pronounce it. Michael Rappaport. And he was basically calling out Black Americans like, oh, we're going to remember this. No, there's no support for Israel. There's no support for Israel. Again, there's always these groups trying to pull us in. Trying to pull us in when we're trying to focus on ourselves and support ourselves. We're the most aggrieved group in America. We're the poorest group in America, unfortunately. But when all these issues, Ukraine and Russia, America tried to get Black Americans on board with the Ukrainians. Black Americans like, wait a minute, we don't know what's going on over there. What is the history of Ukraine and Russia? Oh, I didn't know that Ukraine was the actual country that started the Soviet Union. What's up with the Soviet Union? There's layers, family. There's layers of history and all sorts of things. And quite frankly, Black Americans are not really, informed about that. And neither do we care to be informed about that. Yes, I know that we're not a monolith, but I would like to say the vast majority of us don't walk around thinking about that shit. We just don't. And once again, another conflict breaks out in the midst of another conflict. And the Democratic Party comes out and states that we should support, because on national TV, you have a Democratic president. I want you guys to connect the correlation of what I'm saying, of how the Democrats, because Joe Biden said on national TV that America stands with Israel because he speaks for America. He's the CEO of America. And what people need to understand, the CEO of an organization can say whatever the hell he want to say without repercussion, really. He's already the man. But I digress, okay? Let's move right into this interview because, man, this was very, very powerful, family. Again, fair use support goes out to TYT. This was a really good interview, and I think that, again, all Black Americans should see this because this was powerful.
In bombing Iraq created ISIS. It didn't end ISIS, it created ISIS. Yeah. So the more we bomb the Palestinians, the bigger Hamas is going to get. In this day and age, the Viet Cong didn't raise their hand and say we give up. Neither did none of these groups say we give up. And Hamas is never, ever, ever going to say we give up. So if that's the standard, that means we're just going to keep butchering Palestinian civilians.
But by that exact standard,
that part, family. They're going to continue to butcher innocent Palestinian civilians. Now, Obama and Biden wanted peace between these two countries. But Netanyahu told them he doesn't want peace. He wants occupation. He wants to occupy and control the Hamas and or Palestinians. Okay, allegedly, just in case.
You're acting as though the bombing was just purely, as you seem to think it is, for revenge or retribution. They were bombing these buildings, and while again, I'll say it every time, the innocent loss of life has been horrific, it was not for no reason, and it was not indiscriminately. It was to get rid of strongholds, buildings that they knew had Hamas strongholds in them, so that when they go in with the ground troops that you yourself were suggesting were a better idea and are a better idea, that they aren't a complete suicide mission for the Israeli troops. Also in the immediate aftermath of October 7th, you said, of course, Israel has to respond and is going to bomb. It's just, you hope that it's not at a hugely disproportional number. You said, I hope it's not 10 to 1, 100 to 1. The numbers have been horrible. They've been 5 to 1 or 6 to 1. That's not good, but it's because we're trying to take out a terrorist force that also is a government. And so I do not buy the argument that there is ever going to be a solution where you just say Hamas gets to win. And so I think a much smarter way to approach trying to get what you want.
They don't get to win, Ben. They don't get to win. So look, at the end of the day, so look, two last things, and then you got more of the story.
But a smarter part, what I'm saying, a smarter part, a way to do that is to not demonize.
And it's at this moment where the interview changed. When he cut him off, he was like, yeah, I know you have more news to go over, but he's like, no, and he cuts back in. This is when the interview changed, and what we have to understand, family, never mind, I'll wait. Because there's a lot of history here that we're going to need to go over, and if we don't go over this, then it's going to be confusing, and these gentlemen actually break it down. Mostly Zink breaks it down. I think the one on the right, I believe his background is Jewish. I can hear that he's speaking with conviction and compassion, heartfelt, but again, that shows a biased stance on one side. And it's not having a neutral conversation dealing on truth. Because we understand a lot of times people say, oh, that's fact, that's fact, that's fact. When you really think about the word fact, fact is a socially agreed upon result or definition of something. That's a fact. The truth will always be the truth, right? It's never changing. A fact can actually change over time, given more information.
As people that are responding to this horrible terror attack, but instead say, great, Thank you for a 4-hour every single day during war humanitarian pause and an extra humanitarian corridor. Actually turn the rhetoric towards something that is more inclusive and more positive and say we're moving towards the right direction, not immediately on day one saying that's not real. Maybe it's a tiny bit real, but it's not real. No, it's a major significant change in the conditions on the ground. It's Israel going against what it believes its objectives need to be, to listen to the world community, to give opportunities for aid to come in. That's the big source of outcry from all of the groups saying civilians are being killed, so let the civilians out. So they're doing that. Extra humanitarian.
They're not letting anybody out. Gaza's a prison. You can't leave Gaza.
Egypt will not open their borders.
That's ridiculous. If Egypt opens the borders and the Palestinians go to Egypt, Israel's going to close the border and just take Gaza. No way. That's crazy. No way. No how.
Up to Egypt to keep that border open or not. But certainly not going to open the borders in their own country.
You know, Israel and Egypt have an alliance, and that's why. Look, so we have massive disagreements. So when, at one point, they had about 8,000 civilians killed and 13 Hamas members killed.
Right.
Now, they weren't trying to bomb Hamas. They were doing indiscriminate bombing.
13 Hamas members killed. Where are you getting that number?
So right there, I think that's one of the things that the ADL is going to label anti-Semitic when it comes to Zeke, because he basically stated that the Israeli army was bombing indiscriminately, meaning just bombing, right? For the sake of bombing to kill people. That is what he's essentially getting at. And that is what they're going to allude to, because he's saying it without saying it. That anytime you're saying someone's indiscriminately doing something, that's just to call chaos and havoc. And that's what we need to understand.
A news report. We can report on it.
Hamas does not distinguish in their numbers between Hamas soldiers and civilians. You have no idea how many Hamas soldiers were killed.
Even Netanyahu at one point, and he's a grotesque liar, said in an ABC report, well, 10,000 were killed, but 1,000 of those could have been Hamas. Could have been. And if that's true, but you take Netanyahu's numbers, that's still awful. If you said to me, I've said this 100 times, hey, that guy killed your family members. There's no way that I don't want to kill that guy. I will be filled with rage. And you say there's 9 civilians around him, an aunt, an uncle, a grandma, a baby, etc. Would I bomb them and kill those 9 civilians because to get the bad guy? Never, because it is deeply immoral. I'm not going to do the same thing a terrorist would do. That's insanity. And Israel's saying, yeah, I don't care about the ratio. I dropped the bombs, the buildings collapsed, the babies' heads are crushed.
But they are
defense.
That is a lie.
That's not defense, that's offense.
But they are not saying that. They're taking far more measures than any country that I know of to make sure the civilians leave the area.
They take the least amount of measures.
They make phone calls directly. They drop emails out of the sky. They make multiple statements on social media and on television. They said 24 hours to do as possible.
It's people the South. It's an open air prison.
To the South.
To the South, which they also bombed.
They bombed it a little bit to get rid of all the Hamas targets.
Family, what you're going to see here, I'm not going to really showcase my side, essentially, of who side I'm taking in their argument, not their stance, okay, not their stance, but their argument. But I'll just tell you, I agree with Zeke on 100% of the things he was saying, okay, because he's not looking, and this is, again, where a lot of things are going to be labeled with him. In my opinion, he's not looking at it pro-Palestinian. He's not looking at it pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas. He's not looking at it pro-Israel. He's looking at the situation for what it is. That is just my opinion from reading this. And this is important because when it comes to Black Americans, we're getting the history of this conflict, and we're also getting context around what's occurring on ground. Because these are news anchors who have their own news station or whatever it is, news platform. So when we get this, we're getting great information. But again, as a disclaimer for you guys just tuning in, I stated that this is more for history and understanding the Israel and Hamas conflict. But again, we should not get involved at all. And not being divisive, not being negative, but using our Black American energy, our Black American support for ourselves. Because what occurs when all these conflicts, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Hamas, when all these conflicts are over, we're going to be in the same position that we were before. Because we go out, for feminist movement, labor union movements. We go off of the LGBTQ movement. We go for all these causes. And when it's turned to support us as a black collective, as a black community, as a black people, those same people don't show up. Those same groups don't show up. Don't forget the anti-Asian bill, anti-hate crime bill. The anti-Asian hate crime bill was introduced by a black woman, by Barbara Lee. That's what I want you guys to remember here. The anti-Asian hate crime bill was introduced to be passed for legislation by a black woman, Barbara Lee, and got passed. Has that ever happened to us? For us? By us?
Not the main area that the main bombing is happening. And so that is the reality of war. You're still not ever suggesting concretely how you suggest that Israel lives in peace and
can I answer, please?
Sure.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
Okay, special forces to take out the Hamas guys who attack. No problem, said it from day one. Try to release the hostages, fine. You do negotiation, do power, do all the things that you do. Then, this is super important, end the goddamn occupation.
There isn't an occupation in Gaza.
Oh, man, don't be insane,
There
man.
is a security
Don't be insane.
and a blockade of supplies. There is not an occupation. They voluntarily ended it in 2005 and removed forcibly their own Israeli citizens.
Hey.
How are you going to ask people to end an occupation that ended in 2005? And at least let's use words accurately. Because I've seen too many times on this network people saying genocide when it is not one. People saying occupation when it is not one. There is an occupation in the West Bank. I admit it because that's the definition and the words. But when the occupation ends, you say end the occupation. What are you asking them? To end it again? Should they go back in and then end it again? Is that the request?
Ben, okay, if I come to your house and say, look, I'm not occupying your house, but I can cut the water and power anytime, and I could starve you, and I could make sure you don't even get any water, and if you disagree with me on anything, I could drop a bomb on your head. But I'm not occupating.
Well, no, Zeke, it's not occupation. We call that colonization. That's what that is. That's what they don't understand. That's colonization. When someone is controlling your resources. See, occupation is where there's troops rolling around the streets, carrying weapons, making it a military zone, making it a police state, right?
Okay, murder you anytime I want, but I'm not occupying.
Not the word.
Okay, so let's call it a prison. So Israel should stop imprisoning Palestinians in
And you know
Gaza.
the big difference, though, is that when you have prisons, the people that run the prisons don't offer freedom to all of the people 6 different times, and they reject it when they get 85 to 97.
Uh-oh.
I've seen you shake off in interviews in your head about saying they've been offered peace. You go like this, you go, no, no, no. But they haven't been offered peace many times. So shouldn't they accept that? What is your plan? Why aren't you telling Hamas, right now, release the goddamn hostages, accept peace, make a peace agreement, put on paper, put your word, your money where your mouth is, and offer a solution. Don't just keep demonizing Israel and not offering a way to solve the goddamn problem. Because that goes on forever.
So 2 things about that, Ben. Number one, mission accomplished. Hamas, do a ceasefire, never attack Israel, recognize their right to exist, release the hostages. Obviously. And by the way, hold on. I'll make it even more concrete. Hamas, stop being goddamn idiots. You're destroying the Palestinian cause as well as being immoral. You kill those innocent Israeli civilians, now 10 times as many Palestinians have been killed. Are you happy? Was that mission accomplished? It is profoundly stupid. And it's easy for Hamas leaders to do that as they sit comfortably in Qatar and they condemn their own civilians to death. Ben, being against the terrorists is obvious, okay? But
having a plan to defeat them gets harder.
But Ben, you have to stop imprisoning them. Look.
It's about to take a turn for the worst, family. And again, I told you that this interview was very powerful, but these are some of the key points that were kind of midway or in the middle half of it. And he's going to start breaking down the history of Palestine and Israel and how that all occurred, essentially started to be established in the 1930s. Okay, a lot of this started to form in the 1930s and the 1940s, late 1940s. So it took some time, but some people was talking about the Zionist movement, where Israel was, Israelites or Israelis or Jews was moving out of Europe, and Europe was helping them to find land in Palestine, a certain part of land in Palestine. And it's a lot of history, family. It's absolutely a lot of history, but he's going to chop it up very quickly here. Listen back in.
Ben, if people come over, let's say they take, they name any place. They take New Jersey, they take Texas, and they say, okay, now you're in an open-air prison, and now you have any goddamn rights, and we're going to put a boot on your neck, and now you are servants. You're subhuman. Now you sit there, Texas, and take it. And if any of you ever fight back, you're all goddamn terrorists in Texas. What do you think Texas would do? Texas would blow up. Those Texas citizens would blow up every goddamn occupier.
Absolutely.
They would murder every occupier, and you know.
So he just gave you guys an analogy, right? He said, what if, some enemy forces come over to Texas and occupy Texas, right? Come over to Texas land and occupy them and make them, they're no longer in power. They're now being ran by this outside group. Eventually, you're going to start create warriors. You're going to create soldiers. You're going to create Marines. You're going to create a whole military force. You're going to create militias. That is what he's getting at, because he's actually explaining what happened when Israel came over to Palestine. See, a lot of people who don't know the history, they're just thinking that these countries have been there, beside each other for hundreds of years. No, they have not. This is a very young history of these two countries occupying the same space. But the analogy he's giving, he's stating that Texas is Palestine. And the enemy forces that came over to occupy Texas, that's Israel. And he's actually given the correct history, the true history of the situation. Very important.
How much patience can the Palestinians have? They're sitting there in the West Bank doing nothing. You've been perfectly peaceful. And what did they get for the peace bank? What did they get for the peace? All they got was occupation. 56 years of occupation.
They've been offered peace 6 times.
Yes.
So when you keep somebody in a prison, as you say, what do you mean my ass? They have not been?
Yes,
They
I
have
will
not
explain.
been.
I will explain. I will explain.
37, 48, 67, 2000, 2008, they weren't offered their own state, and they said no. So yes, if murderers and terrorists are going to keep killing you, and you keep saying, here, I'm giving you what you want. I'm giving you most of what you want, and you keep saying no. Nobody on earth, yourself included, would also allow themselves to keep being killed.
He's about to break down the history right now.
Number one, 1937. At that point, Israel doesn't even exist. A bunch of people come over to Palestine and go, now you guys,
1937, Israel doesn't even exist. Then a bunch of people come over. Now, I just slowed it down, family, so you can get this history, because here's the problem with black people trying to put on a cape for this conflict, getting behind Israel or getting behind Palestine or getting behind Hamas. I'm stating that we should mind our own damn business. Don't be pro or anti, because pro one thing is anti the other. And we need to focus on our own issues. But he's breaking down the history. 1937, people come over. Israel doesn't even exist. And I'm not going to pause it here, fam. I'm going to let it play through.
your land, but we're planning to take half of it. So why don't you just give us half? And move out of your freaking houses. We own that land now. Oh, you didn't take it. Well, what a bunch of bad guys. I was going to take your goddamn land, and I was going to make you march, and then maybe die. Oh, you didn't take what? The generous offer that I gave you. 1948, I'm going to take half your land. Give me your land. You can stay. You get the hell out of here. I'm more important than you. Oh, you don't own your land anymore. Well, you didn't take it. Why didn't you take it? What a lovely deal I gave you, where I would still have your land.
Now, what he's saying is, as they were building Israel and Jews were coming over and they was getting help from the British powers, what he's basically stating is, when they came over and invaded, they took over their land, then partitioned land back to them. And while they're setting up, building, they're still having conflicts. Now, if you go back, you can look at all the conflicts between Palestine, Israel, Hamas, Israel, in the Gaza Strip, Israel, all these different groups getting involved, right? And there's been some groups from Syria, Iran, all these other different groups getting involved, okay? Which a lot of people thought that this was actually a religious war, not just based upon power and land. And what he's stating is throughout these different times that Israel was occupying the land, they will give the Palestinians some of their land back. And of course, within Palestine, there is a terrorist group, Hamas, okay? So those, I'm using those interchangeable, but they're not interchangeable because not all Palestinians are part of Hamas but Hamas are Palestinians, if that makes any sense. But this is the way we're looking at this. And this is very important to break down because he's giving you guys the metaphors and analogs here back and forth and try to have you to see it in a different light, a different perspective. Because a lot of us simply don't take our time to read this history because it don't involve us. But you see people trying to involve us behind Israel because there are some black groups out there, like I believe the Hebrew Israelites. There's some individuals who are popular online who make TikToks giving support behind Hamas, right? And my thing is I don't want conflicts and wars and people to die at all, right? It's absolutely grotesque. There are children dying, premature children dying. There's just a lot of death, murder, and this chaos. I don't want that for any group of people. But the point with this is, family, we can't just put on a cape for people and we do not understand the history. And when we understand the history and we understand what's truly going on, it still doesn't give us, in my opinion, a battery in our back to go help and support people who will never help and support us, who has never helped and support us. History has told Black Americans any cause, any group that we have helped in the past, right in our future, right in our past, none of these groups ever helped us.
Okay, now you move to later rounds, then it gets more complicated. Because then they come back in and they go, I'll give you 87% of your house back. But I had 100% of my house. And by the way, you're not even giving me the 50% you already took. You're giving me 87% of the other 50%. Okay, hold on. But at the same time, do I wish 87%, 83, 97, whatever the goddamn number was that both sides took it? Yes, I wish they both took it. And I wish Israel made a better offer, and I wish the Palestinians took a bad offer.
So that's the solution then?
Yes, exactly. Right. But at this point, both Obama and Trump have said, Netanyahu doesn't want peace. He hasn't offered peace. He doesn't want peace. He wants permanent occupation.
So there was something he said here, family. He was stating that he wished that the Palestinians would have took a bad deal. That giving up 87% of their land, 83% of their land to Israel, even though they had 100% of this land. Okay, I want you guys to understand that. Palestine was 100% of the landmass that Israel and Palestine now rest on. Palestine, that was all their land. Israel came in and basically took over majority of the land and gave them back a small piece of it. And that's what he was stating, that these conflicts have been going back and forth. Okay, well, you don't want that. And they go back to war and killing each other and they offer another. And then a guy on the right here, I forgot the gentleman's name, but he's talking about, oh, Israel has offered peace over 5 or 6 times throughout the years. Zeke is basically stating, hey, listen, it doesn't matter how many times you offer the Palestinians peace or Hamas peace. You are occupying their land. So you're going to come inside my house, occupy it, then only give me 13% of my house back. How that make sense? And you don't think with the meager resources that I have, you don't think with the friends and partners that I have throughout the Middle Eastern and Islamic nations, you think I'm not going to ask for support so I can fight my enemy that's taken over 83, 87% of my house? That's why I said the things that he's stating here, I'm surprised that the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, that is Jewish ran, hasn't labeled him as an anti-Semite. Because anything that may seem negative or divisive, that's where people are being labeled. Because I'm just giving commentary on it. I'm not taking a stance on either one. I'm just giving commentary. And the problem with that is, if people, and I'm not stating Black Americans, if people don't support people like him, then everybody will be silenced. Everybody will be counseled. Because he's given the true history of it as I know it, as I read it, not how I feel, but how I read it. So either one or two things, somebody's lying. The history books are lying, or these organizations are lying. Because simply telling the truth is not anti-anything.
God's sake, fire Netanyahu. If it's a democracy, fire him. Because if you don't fire him, you're saying, yeah, I like what he's doing. We're going to occupy these poor people forever. In West Bank, there's no violence except by the settlers.
But they totally agree.
But they're still occupied. But they're still occupied because they like it. They like occupying that.
We're trying to remove Netanyahu, and then there was a horrific terrorist attack.
They brought him back like 4 times.
Yeah,
Look,
he's not a partner for peace. I agree with that 100%. He was funding Hamas to help make sure there was not peace that happens. That is true. But now we're in a reality that is now very hard to unwind unless some concrete solution is offered. Not just simply telling one side, we know the other side is terrorists, and so we have to just give it in.
No, don't give it. 67 borders. End occupation. Occupation is a core evil. And if you don't end the occupation, I would do it unilaterally. Here, 67 borders. Good luck. You guys are sovereign now. You can have your own police, military, do whatever you like. You cross over, and then we come and obliterate you, okay? But if they made a peace deal with Egypt, do a peace deal. It's not that complicated. Israel, you have got to let go. We all want to go to Israel. We want Israel to be a beautiful, safe place filled with loving people, which it is. But we can't go, and we can't root for you, and we can't do any of these things if you kill citizens at this enormous rate and never give any hope to those Palestinians. And they go, they should know that they're defeated. They should know that they're going to stay occupied for the rest of time because they're savages. Savages. They can't ever have peace. They're always doing violence. We're going to occupy them for another 50 years.
Again, they're not occupied, and the savages are the leadership that is holding.
You know, one of the things I too want to point out is that he stated that Israel is basically just killing innocent Palestinians. Now, another word that he used that's important, and I'm kind of linking this together. I'm doing it two-sided here, family. One, how we should stay out of this because we don't know the true history and the many layers therein of how this conflict essentially started. But we are getting the breakdown. Okay, we are analyzing this. And then secondly, the history of these two countries and how they came to be. But he stated that Israel is killing innocent Palestinians. Why is that important? Because earlier he stated that they were indiscriminately killing Palestinians. If you add both of those up together, basically what he's alluding to, okay, and this is my conjecture, that he's not saying this, I'm saying this, because this is what I'm getting from it. Indiscriminatory or indiscriminately and killing innocent Palestinians, if you combine those two together, he's basically saying that Israel is actually targeting innocent Palestinian civilians. That is what I get from that. When we break this down, family, analyzing this, that is my conjecture. I'm not stating this is true. I'm stating I'm getting that from this commentary of this news report. He stated that Israel is killing innocent Palestinians. Earlier, he said that Israel is indiscriminately bombing and killing Palestinians. You add those up, he's basically saying that Israel is going in and purposely killing civilians. That's what I get from that.
Them hostage, the Palestinians.
But you know what? Israeli leadership are also savages. And at this point, they've been 7 times as savage as Hamas, which if I'm an Israeli citizen, I'm sickened by that fact.
The numbers are horrible, and it's in self-defense, and you know that's a difference. You know that's a big difference.
Yeah.
There was so much more to get to it now, but I'll just briefly summarize. As a reminder, not just are the leadership of the Palestinian people in Gaza, the terrorist organization Hamas, they are backed by one of America's enemies, Iran, and they just again celebrated, annually as they do, the other day, the 1979 taking of Americans hostage at the U.S. Embassy, and there were the chants, death to America, death to Israel, by the people that sponsor the suicide attackers and the terrorists in the Palestinian territories, paid for by Iran. And who was speaking at that rally was one of the leaders of Hamas, the envoy of Hamas to Iran in his official office and official capacity, and those are the people that are funding, that people are siding with, and acting as though just tell Israel to deal with it. No, how about get the world community to stop funding terror and actually be a true partner for peace? So this time when it is offered, perhaps they will take the offer and not dwell in the past forever, because everyone's past is very painful in this scenario. The only way forward is to move forward.
Well, that's not true.
Does fund Hamas. I despise the leadership of the Iranian government. They're mullahs, and they would kill me in a second for being an apostate. I got no interest in them. But that doesn't mean that we should increase hostilities.
Correct.
We had a peace deal with Iran. We had a peace deal, but the idiot Donald Trump.
So, fam, I wanna stop that right there. Okay, I wanna stop that right there. They started getting into Iran and some other things, but what I really want you to take from this is that there's a complex history between those two, and you have to essentially add in Palestine, because that's what Hamas. That's the country they're actually in. There's a lot of history there. And this is getting a lot more media attention than the Ukraine-Russian war. They kind of do these quick clips, these small little segments. When it comes to Ukraine-Russia, their attention is more so on this land grab. And through that interview, he said a lot of things that was very true of how Israel obtained that land, okay? They had the backing of the UK, by the way. They had the backing of the UK when they were leaving out of Europe for a land of their own. They wanted a land of their own. So UK thought it would be a good idea to take another country, another portion of a country's land for Israel to settle in, for them to call a state of Israel for Jewish people. Because don't forget, he stated in 1937, this is not even 100 years yet, family, not even 100 years yet. In 1937, Israel wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a country then. I want you to think about that. So you have Europe up here, you have the Middle East, you have Palestine. The UK supported the Jews leaving out of Europe to take over, and that's my conjecture, allegedly, to take over that land. And in doing so, they came and invaded, took 100% of their land, and only gave them, anywhere from 13 to 15% back. And growing up, I don't know if you guys were ever attentive to the news, but you will always hear something on the news with Israel and Gaza, Israel and Palestine, always fighting on the Gaza Strip. You will always hear these conflicts going on. And even if you didn't really watch the news or pay attention to the news, you've heard of that a couple of times, because they have over 5 or 6 conflicts. I mean, now this is really nothing new. But I think that the prime minister of Israel, I think he's tired of the conflicts. Netanyahu, he's tired of the conflicts. And I think at this point, we're getting to, again, this is commentary from the video, family. This is not coming from me. We're getting into, and I don't want to say these words. I'm gonna try to stay away from this word because the YouTube algorithm is trying to block certain words. I'll say they're trying to wipe away. They're trying to wipe away a lot of these people. That's coming from the video that we just watched. So for you guys tuning in, we just was watching TYT heated debate about the Israeli pause in the conflict and how it's really just a ploy for Israel to invade more. That was from the TYT. And we're breaking it down because it's very important how there's so many layers of Israel and how they've essentially was given that land by the UK, right? They had the backing of the UK. And there's been some groups out there like the Hebrew Israelites. I know that one for sure. There's been some individuals on TikTok and X now that they call it, also known as Twitter, that they put out how they are either pro-Israel or pro-Palestine or pro-Hamas. And I'm just telling black folk, we just need to mind our damn business. You know how your grandma, something will happen outside. She don't go outside, right? You had some grandmas, if they knew them, she'll step outside on the porch. What y'all doing over there? Something like that. But then if you're where I'm from, DC, New York, Jersey, Pennsylvania, Those are the down south. They go out on the porch. No. Grandmothers in the Northeast, they peek out the blinds first. Who that is? Oh, hell no. They ain't going out there, family. They're not going out there. Okay? So we have to mind our own damn business on this one, because everybody's trying to put a battery in our back and fearmonger us and manipulate us to supporting yet again another cause that won't support Black Americans. And again, as a disclaimer, not to be divisive, not to be negative, not being pro anything or not being anti anything. Because again, Black America is not being a monolith, but I would like to say that we don't walk around with these groups living rent-free in our head and we just thinking about, man, I should really stand behind Israel on this one. Man, I should really stand behind Hamas on that one. Man, Ukraine, I think I sympathize with them. Oh man, them Russians, yeah, they the ones being done wrong. Y'all don't know nothing. Nah, family, here's the thing. We have our own stance on these groups. We have our own stance on these groups. And they're our personal stance. What happens is some people feel the energy and inclination and conviction to now go public or how they feel about these situations. Must I say again, when these conflicts end, and they all will end, if we go and put on the cape, put the battery in that back, and we go out there and we hoop, holler, and protest and yell and shout, and we're out there with everyone else, are they going to do that when Black Americans put reparations on the ticket? Are they going to do that when Black Americans put being a protected class on the ticket? Are they going to scream, shout, stump, protest, and support with their dollars for our reparations and our protection class status? That's my question. Because anytime I talk to somebody about reparations or protected class status or even land inheritance of any sort, especially some of our counterparts in the white community, not all, some of them, and you ask them, hey, you believe that Black Americans descendants of slaves should receive reparations? Well, you'll get some like, no, that happened such a long time ago. I don't have no slaves. My daddy didn't have no slaves. I'm fifth generation Irish. We came over here. But don't you believe that the persecution of Black Americans, the land being stolen, the burning of our towns, the sinking of our towns, the murdering of our lineages, you don't think that should be repatriated, or there should be retribution or compensation that you should give us? Well, it happened such a long time ago. So how is it that white Americans, right, are more so wealthier than Black Americans? Well, you just got to pull yourself up and you got to start businesses and you got to start investing yourselves. That's true. But why do you think we haven't? See, a lot of times, and you don't have to do this, family, but it hurts them when you know your history. It hurts them when you know American history, which is Black history. And you start bringing up all these points in time, the very same thing that he's stating or she's stating of what we have done, what we have invented, the innovations, the contributions to America that we've made. And you tell them, we did these. We had Black business districts. We had Black Wall Streets. We had these prominent middle-class societies. And they were destroyed. They were bombed. They were burned. They were buried. They were flooded. What are your excuses now? You don't think that the American government owes Black Americans compensation for that? For the loss of their family members and their land and their towns? And their wealth and their banks? You don't believe that? Well, it just happened such a long time ago, and I just think it's a different time now. So you are anti-reparations for any group? Yeah, I just think there's nothing really going on right now. No reparations, I don't know. Well, why aren't you protesting against the Native Americans receiving reparations? Well, why aren't you protesting against the Native Americans who are receiving reparations? Do you think these are the Native Americans today that they were genociding back then, hundreds of years ago? You still think, no. These are their descendants. You partition off land throughout America for these 500 plus recognized tribes. You federally fund these reservations with federal dollars. You federally fund the infrastructure, the school, the fire department, the police department with federal dollars. And they don't pay taxes. And they get a stipend every month. And they still can apply for TAF, CHIP, SSI, Medicaid, all the same things that American citizens. And I'm not hating. They should get all of what they fight for, and they should get all of what they're receiving. Not hating. Then my question to them people is, why can't we get that? We get our first initial cash payment. Now, I know this number is quite high, but a lot of you will agree with me. But I know a lot of you are going to say, we ain't getting that. But $2 million. Then we get ongoing monthly payments. But see, when you do that 100 trillion number in your head, it seems unreasonable. It seems non-feasible. But when you start tallying up all the country we support monetarily, when you start tallying up all the compensation and money we send and equipment we send to sponsor certain countries in their conflicts because we're allies. And I'm pretty sure there's some other little Western European countries that are supporting Ukraine. I'm pretty sure there are some Western European countries that are supporting Israel. See, and when I look at this, we get mad when Syria, Iran, Iraq supports Palestine and or Hamas, okay? But nobody gets mad when these European countries fund Israel. And see, staying neutral on the matter and not really talking about it is probably our best bet. Because you'll get yourself in trouble out here. Because people are just so damn emotional going back and forth about a conflict and situation they just don't know the history of. Because there's so many elements to this, so many levels to this. So let's just see if these same people jump on board, because we've never had the support of the world when our people were going through the tragedy they were going through. And I keep telling people they believe that United Nations, United Nations and The Hague was established by the United States of America. So why would the United Nations investigate America for a human rights violation during Jim Crow? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the UN was established in 1945. I think the UN, and someone can fact check me here, was established in 1945 by a couple of countries. But we know the main player here was the United States of America. They established United Nations. And why would the United States then turn around and say, oh, humanitarian violations, let's go and investigate America and all of the states and cities, not just the South, not just the North, of the racism, bigotry, and discrimination? Why would America do that? They wouldn't. They haven't. You get what I'm getting at? And then when you take a black woman, Barbara Lee, they introduce an anti-Asian hate crime bill and it get passed very easily. And don't get me wrong, family. I'm not saying they don't deserve that. I'm not anti-Asian at all. At all. But I want you to think about the pain and struggles of our people, not to recall all of history, but just think about it. When have one of our people proposed said bill and it got passed? But they want us to put on a cape for all these other groups. They want us in the street protesting for all these other groups. They want our activists to go out there and give their energy. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Stay our black ass at home. Let's mind our own black business. Let's do that. Let's own our own black business. It's kind of just like Pookie and Ray Ray's fighting across the street. You getting the hell on to your house. Let them fools do that. That's what I have for you today, family.